So my name is Maria Whipple, and I'm excited to be with all of you this evening. I'll be moderating this call while Stephanie Phonebreak will ensure that everything on the back end runs smoothly. Before starting, we do want to acknowledge that each of you comes with your own set of life experiences. This contributes to the way you perceive several types of information. So please note that we will be covering a variety of sensitive topics surrounding cyberdeviance. So to launch our 2023 Cocktails and Conversation is Dr. Kate, the Associate Professor in the Department of Computer and Information Technologies Cyber Forensics Program at Purdue. Now, before we go into the heart of tonight's highly anticipated Cocktails and Conversation, let's see what you know about Dr. Kate. So just some fun questions just to get us all warmed up. So if you can put in the chat what you think the answer is, and this is a little bit about herself. So number one, what dog breed does Dr. Kate and her husband rescue? What dog breed does Dr. Kate and her husband rescue? You have a choice between Boston Terrier, Basset Hound, German Shepherd, or Rottweiler. Boston Terrier, Basset Hound, German Shepherd, or Rottweiler. I will let her correct you afterwards. I'll say all four questions first. And then number two, before dogs, Dr. Kate and her husband used to rescue A, birds, B, ferrets, C, snakes. I didn't know you could rescue snakes. And D, rabbits. So what did she and her husband rescue? Birds, ferrets, snakes, or rabbits? Oh, eye-opening. Okay, question number three. Dr. Kate has had purple hair for how many years? How many years has she had purple hair?
6.
I'm just going to let you throw in some numbers there instead of giving you a multiple choice. And the last question, this will be a fun one. Dr. Kate can lift more weights than her husband on bench press, overhead squats, clean and jerk, and deadlift. You're going to have to even just explain some of that to me. So Dr. Kate can lift more weights than her husband on the bench press, overhead squat, clean and jerk, or the deadlift. Okay. Dr. Kate, I'll let you take over those questions. What dog breed do you own?
Yeah, so I have pictures for you guys.
Lovely.
We rescue Basset Hound mixes. So we have one full-blooded one, and then we have 2 that are Great Pyrenees mixes.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Joanne, I can't hear you. You're saying something. Were you going to want to say something? We have a lot of dog lovers on this call.
Okay, good.
I want to see the picture of the Pyrenees and Basset Hound mix. I just can't imagine.
Oh yeah, you're gonna see it.
Here we go.
And we used to rescue ferrets. So my husband is allergic to cats, and so we didn't have a yard, so that's how we started with ferrets. And we worked with a rescue center when we lived in Seattle. So.
Fun. I didn't know.
The third question, oh my gosh. So Carrie Costello was right. It has been over 10 years. So it's close to, I think, 13, 14 years since I've had purple hair. Okay. My mom keeps asking me when I'm going to give it up.
I think it looks beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I told her I'm not. So, and then the last one is the overhead squat. So I'm a yoga instructor, and so I have really good shoulder mobility. And so that is my best lift.
Oh, okay, well, thank you.
But I know my husband will be not thrilled that I shared that I lift more than him on that.
And that it will be saved in eternity over YouTube. So that'll be fun. Don't tell your husband that either. So lovely. Okay, she's a fantastic yoga instructor, somebody. So yay. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Did you want to share your pictures?
Oh yeah, let me get the slides up. Okay, here we go. All right, so I just have to Okay, you guys can see the one. Hold on, I think I shared the wrong screen. This is the problem when you have 2 or 3 monitors, right? You got to make sure you share the right one. Okay. Okay, here we go. And then let me get the slideshow going. And swap. They're the kids.
The kid.
Yep.
There you
So
go, Joanne.
yeah, so this is a Basset Pyrenees Mastiff. His name is Moose. He just turned 10 on Thursday. And then Ducky is our youngest. He's in the middle here. He is Basset Pyrenees and Australian Shepherd. And then our last one down here on the bottom is Possum, and she is full-blooded Basset. So there they are.
Adorable.
Yeah,
You could
great
put heart-
Pyrenees.
You could put hearts on there as your reaction, ladies, if you want. In the
I
chat.
know, they're so sweet.
Thank you. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's.
Oh,
Okay. Before you go into your slides, I just wanted just to say a few more things. Now
Mhm.
that we know this side about Dr. Kate, let's hear about her work at Purdue. So
Okay.
Kate studies the relationship between personality and cyberdeviant behaviors. She's a globally recognized expert in internet crimes against children, specifically on the criminological characteristics and grooming strategies of online child sex offenders. Tonight, we'll learn more about the interdisciplinary approach to understanding cyberdeviant behavior. So please welcome Kate to the virtual stage. So we are very, very, very happy to have you share your time with us tonight. So thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
And I'll let you take over the slides. So thank you.
So as you guys were kind of warned, we'll go into some sensitive topics. So, you know, feel free. I mean, I tend to really approach this from an objective research standpoint. I mean, I feel like that's kind of what we do at Purdue, right? And I've gotten really good about talking about this topic in a way where I feel like we can all understand it and sort of take that step back and try to see it from, again, that scientific perspective and try to remove some of that emotional kind of baggage that tends to come with this. So again, that's kind of my goal for today, but I want to make sure that I talk about the high-tech crime unit. So some of you may not know we have this at Purdue, and this is a digital forensics unit that's in the basement of one of our buildings on campus. And so all of the digital forensic examiners, so those are law enforcement or civilian personnel that have been certified in digital evidence. So evidence from some sort of digital device, like a mobile phone, a laptop, it could be even an Xbox. So they're certified to handle this type of evidence. And we have all of them housed within Tippecanoe County in one place. So part of this is because we as academics, we would love access to the data, but then we're also here to help answer questions, get student interns involved. They can do research, they can help them with password cracking or with the latest social media apps. So a lot of times we'll have a new app that maybe a examiner is not as familiar with, and our students use it all the time. So then they can help the law enforcement officer or the examiner kind of work through that social media application. And it's a really great relationship. We get quite a bit of grant funding through the Department of Justice and the National Institute of Justice. We cover overtime hours through some of these grants as well, and they give us feedback on the tools that we use. So my work would not exist without law enforcement, their willingness to share data with us. And so I really wanted to highlight this. So this is a pretty cool lab that exists since 2015 on campus in a little secret spot. So kind of cool. So a couple of areas that were mentioned that I study, it's really about technology facilitated crime. So what ways in which we use technology, and I specialize in digital technology. So again, mobile phone, laptops, anything that uses social media, for instance, and it's sometimes deviant and sometimes a crime. And so I know there was a lot of questions about that. What do I mean by cyber deviance? Well, trolling is a really great example of that. Trolling is not necessarily illegal. It's especially not illegal in the United States because of the First Amendment. Now, as we all know, the First Amendment only can go so far, and not everything we say is going to be protected under the First Amendment. But for the most part, trolling in the States, it's protected. Now, in countries like the UK, trolling is actually a crime. And so when I talk about trolling, these are instances where people are on social media applications and they're trying to start fights. They post in a way in which it's going to upset somebody. So imagine a troll going to a feminist website and posting how women should be home women shouldn't be educated, we shouldn't be allowed to go to school, to start, getting people riled up and to start kind of that aggressive dialogue. So that's really what we're talking about with trolling. Now, it's very different than cyberbullying. Trolling tends to be anonymous, somebody random targeting somebody else that's at random. Cyberbullying, you tend to know the person. Child sexual exploitation, I'm going to talk even more about, because I have a feeling a lot of you are interested in this area. Maybe you have kids, maybe you work with kids. And so I'm going to make sure to go into this. Hacking is, unauthorized access. So that could be guessing somebody's passwords, using, a network in an unauthorized way. And so we do a little bit of research in that as well. And then catfishing is one of my favorite topics. These are those individuals that create fake profiles online and usually set up a relationship with somebody else. And so, you might think that you're talking to a 25-year-old man, you're dating, you're sending photos back and forth, and then you find out that this is really a 70-year-old woman. And so catfishing is really about, my room had just started beeping, sorry. So catfishing, hold on a second. Oh my God. Okay, well, apparently this is what happens when you have the Roomba in the office. And the other area that I study is the impact of disturbing media. So, one of the things is that, these digital forensic examiners that I work with, they are exposed to so many horrific images. And I'm not just talking about child sexual exploitation, I'm talking about beheading videos, homicide photos, homicide videos. I mean, everything that we have now is on camera, right? People are taking videos of crime scenes or of crimes as they're occurring. We have a lot of surveillance. And so, as these examiners are working through these videos and images, it has an impact on them. And I think we're finally recognizing that this is an important topic to discuss. A good, or an unfortunate example, I should say, instead of good example, but an unfortunate example is school shootings. So somebody has to listen to those phone calls to 911, count the number of shots that are happening, and they try to create that timeline for prosecutors. That's what our digital and audio forensic examiners are doing. And so I think, again, that this is a really important kind of research area. One of the vast problem, I kind of want you to think about is we all have internet access for the most part, right? We're on here right now. We have a mobile device in some way. So why do some of us commit crimes when others don't? This is different to me than having a gun or having some sort of other, technical device that you might use. We all have the ability to cyberbully somebody. We all have the ability to text a minor and ask them to send us a photo. We have the ability to password crack or to pretend to be somebody else and ask for information. So again, why do some people do this and others don't? And so when we start talking about how big this problem is from a law enforcement standpoint, about 63% of the world has internet access. That's 63% of the world that could be a victim or an offender. It's a lot of people that we have to worry about. And then when we start thinking about, well, what kind of device do we need to look at? Well, we're talking about mobile phones. Now, why is that a problem? Well, because how often do you take your phone in and get it changed, right? You're going to take your phone in, you want a new iPhone, you want the brand new Android. So you're always going to go and get new technology. That means law enforcement needs a way to stay in the game, right? They need to be able to pull data off of these new devices that are constantly being updated and upgraded. But what's also interesting is that we have offenders that still use old technology. So we still need to be able to analyze what we call legacy devices or older devices. So again, this is part of the problem. We have a lot of technology, a lot of data can be stored on that technology, and a lot of suspects and a lot of victims that we have to worry about. And then we have COVID. So what's really interesting is that the data is coming in and COVID really exacerbated the problem. We saw a huge spike in cybercrime in general, not only child sexual exploitation, but also in online fraud scams. So those websites where you could sign up to get a vaccine and it was fake, right? They were taking your money and they were scamming you, or malware. You would type in, covidvaccine.gov or, whatever website, and it ended up being a fake website that you ended up installing malware. So, which in that case is malicious software where a hacker can then gain access to your computer. So this has been a major problem since 2020. And coming into that online enticement, I know a lot of you are going to be interested in this. So one of the things that we look at is grooming. So how are offenders tricking kids into sending pictures? Or who are these offenders? And what about the offenders that want to meet face-to-face versus those that do not, that they'll never want to meet face-to-face? They just want to have a sexual conversation. And so can we really understand the differences in those offenders? Can we prioritize those cases? And to give you some statistics, again, there's a 35% increase from 2020 and the number of cyber tips that were sent to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So that shows you the impact of COVID. And about 1 out of 25 children online will experience a sexual solicitation where an adult asks them to meet to have sex in the physical world. So this is, again, a big problem. And I can stop there. Wanted to show one last slide. I'm going to move forward a little bit and share it from current slide. So I mentioned the interdisciplinary nature of my work, and I decided to highlight the CAT tool. So this is a tool where we have natural language processing, big data, and digital forensics and biometrics. So what we do is we analyze the way in which offenders talk to minors. And can we, again, prioritize, that's what you're seeing in the center here, based on the way they talk, can we say that this person is likely to be a contact offender, somebody who wants to meet in the real world? And can we identify them based on the photos they send? And so these offenders are smart. They tend not to send photos of their faces, but they send photos of their hands. And I will let you imagine why, but lots of hand photos. And so what we can actually do is pull knuckle biometrics from that. And so that's what we're working on, is creating a knuckle biometric algorithm that law enforcement can then use to help identify an offender who has been sending photos to minors or communicating with a minor in a legal way. And so this is one of the grants that we've had funded for the last couple of years. And it's a tool that once our department is done creating it, it'll be done in a couple of years. It'll be free to law enforcement. So that's the other thing, is that we want law enforcement to have access to this so that they can use it to help them make decisions about the types of offenders that they're dealing with, because we're seeing such an increase in the number of child sexual exploitation cases online. So that is kind of a quick overview of sort of cyber deviance, a couple of the research topics that are areas that I have, and I can definitely take those questions I know you guys have for me. So I was hoping this would be very much a dialogue and a discussion.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
was very clarifying. Some of that information I'm still trying to digest. I think maybe some other ladies here on the call too, what all these different terms mean, because they were just like recently invented within the last maybe 2 decades or so, right? Those terms
Oh, yeah.
existed before then. So we're just trying to get that into our everyday vocabulary, but still in our vocabulary. So before we go into these questions, maybe just some background questions that we'd like to ask is, can you tell us what led you to want to focus on criminological characteristics and grooming strategies in online child sex?
Yeah, so I actually did my undergrad at Purdue. So I was a psychology and law and society double major, and then I minored in forensics. I was actually the first cohort to have the forensics minor at Purdue, and I was really interested in becoming a law enforcement officer. I wanted to go into the FBI and do profiling work. And I thought the best way to do that was to understand people and then to also understand the evidence. And I did my master's in New York City at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. It has a pretty famous forensic psychology program. And so forensic psychology is the application of psychological principles to the court system. So that could be somebody who gets hired to do an assessment on whether somebody is criminally insane, or, you know, within a civil suit, it might be parental custody. So which parent should have custody. So again, any way in which we can apply psychology to the criminal justice system. And so in my case, I look at offender risk was really what I was interested in, an offender assessment. And then I was halfway through the hiring process for Chicago Police Department when I got a phone call from Purdue asking me to come back and do my PhD. And so my PhD is in psychology and digital forensics. And then that's kind of where my career started. So I got interested in child sexual exploitation because I was an intern when I was an undergrad at Purdue with Crime Stoppers. I don't know, hopefully you guys have seen Crime Stoppers, especially the Indiana one. I worked in Indianapolis with them. And when my job was to pull the cases and make like kind of news releases. And I kept pulling cases on we call them child pornography offenders at the time. So on CP offenders, I kept pulling them and I'm thinking, who are these people that are looking at pictures, but they're not being charged with contact offending? Like, I don't, that was kind of this in the early 2000s, that was strange. Like, to have this, are they pedophiles? Are they not pedophiles? Like, who are these people? And so that really, I would say that internship from Crime Stoppers is what facilitated my interest in this area. And then that's what I studied in my my master's and PhD.
Thank you. Joanne says, so the BAU unit and criminal minds.
Yeah, that's what that's what I absolutely wanted to do.
Okay, and Sarah and John Day is a great school. Andrea, Sharon, and yeah, I'll go back to those questions. I'm just going to do some backup questions first, and then I'll go back to the questions in the chat. So can you share what it's like? Can you share what it was like to be a woman in this field?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite questions. I would say it was hard. Wow. So I remember, just to give you an example, I remember when I interviewed with the Indianapolis Police Department, because that is who assigned us to the different units. And again, I got assigned to Crime Stoppers at the time. When I walked in and sat down, the person said, "You look good in that suit, you're hired," on spot. And I just remember thinking that this is going to be what it's like, that I'm going to always have kind of these comments. I got to a point where I used to dress, well, I guess I still dress in all black, but I used to dress very, like, hair pulled back. I didn't wear makeup. I just felt like I couldn't do anything that made myself very feminine or feel like that I just, what I'm saying? Like, I tried to downgrade that. And it was at the American Academy of Forensic Science. Dale Hinman is a famous FBI profiler. She's one of the first. And if you remember back in the day when there was court TV, before it became ID Discovery, court TV, she had a show called Body of Evidence. And she would go over her cases. And I remember as an undergrad student meeting her. And I thought, I'm going to walk up to her and introduce myself and basically say I'm a huge fan and I want to be you. And I asked her, I said, how have you handled being a female in this area? And she pulled out her lipstick and she literally put on lipstick and said, "I just be myself, girl." And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to be me. And, and I've tried to stick with that, but it has been difficult. Absolutely. I'm lucky at Purdue. My department is fantastic and the law enforcement officers I work with are fantastic. But I'm sure, as you guys can all imagine, it was a very difficult road to take, for sure.
I imagine them right now as well, too. And so she must have been one of your earliest mentors, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a role model. And I think that's interesting because you hear people say, how are women represented in this area? And I always laugh because I think of the TV shows where, really technical females tend to have crazy hair and their hair is dyed all these weird colors. And then I sit there and I go, oh, I'm that way. So how much of that was reflected by kind of what I grew up with as role models? But, she was a female role model that I was incredibly lucky to have.
And so while we're on that topic, how would you, what kind of advice would you give to some students that are, students that want to enter this field?
Yeah, I would honestly, the best advice that I would give is to find good mentors. And I say that being whether they're male or female. And so one of my first mentors was actually at Crime Stoppers, the lieutenant. I'm not supposed to call him that, but he will be my lieutenant forever. And so we are still good friends, but Lieutenant was that first male figure that I had that valued the work that I was doing because I applied myself and I worked hard, and it was just that simple. And that was very important to me because up until that point, I really hadn't had somebody like that where I felt like I had support from even my male colleagues. Instead, I always felt like, oh, the sly comments of, Well, if you get into the FBI, it's because they need a female quota. Or you'll only get selected because you're a female. I would be a better FBI agent, but because you're female, you're going to get the job over me. So I heard a lot of that. So for me to have a male colleague that value my work, like that was important to me. I thought, okay, so that gave me this perspective of not all men are this way, and that they do see us as equals and as a team, and we can do this. And then obviously having female mentors as well was incredibly important. So finding a support system, finding a tribe, I think is one of the best ways to get through something like this. And also, again, networking. And I tried to not take it personal. I just decided that these were people with their own problems and they were projecting it onto me. I couldn't control any of it.
We can't control what can do. So thank you for that. Because I think there's maybe some students on the call that are wondering if this is something they might want to answer. So that's why that question was asked. So I'm going to ask the 3 questions that you asked and that we texted, saying that these are probably the most popular questions that you get asked. So here we go. And I think it might answer some of the questions that are here on the chat. So number 1, how do we talk to our kids about sexting?
Oh, yes. I love this one. So one of the first things I tell parents, or just, anybody, right? I have nieces and nephews, that we need to take a step back and think about what it was like when we were kids. And so we did not have technology that made it as easy to send photos, but we would flash, our friends, or we would moon the school bus, right? Like we did things. And I know, people took photos and instead you had to go to Walgreens to get them processed, but there was still that kind of sexual exploration. And now it's just unfortunately really easy to do. And so that's really, it's not that this is, we didn't do the same thing. We did. We absolutely did the same thing. It's just now it's a lot easier. So how do you talk to your kids about it? Well, this sounds crazy what I'm about to say, but there is an academic push in the literature to start thinking about it as the same as having a safe sex talk. Like you should have a safe sexting talk. You should know that kids make mistakes and kids are going to do things. And having a conversation and having an open conversation so that number 1, they know if they do take a photo, it gets shared and unfortunately shared with others, that they can come to you and that you will not be mad, right? Like this doesn't need, obviously it's a horrible situation, but that you are going to be there to help them take care of it. Because part of the problem is that kids are afraid to come forward or to come and tell their parents that this has happened. And then it blows up and it becomes out of control. So within the safe sexting literature, it does talk about making sure that it's done with a partner that you trust. We also sext as adults. So, if I was to send a photo to somebody consensually and then they share it with somebody else, I should understand those repercussions. And also non-consensual pornography, revenge pornography is also a problem for adults, not just minors. And so we all should be thinking about that. What is safe sexting? I tell people don't include your face, don't include tattoos like me, right? That would be a giveaway. Plausible deniability is kind of a saving grace here, but with sexting also for minors, it's illegal. So creating a sexually explicit image of anyone under the age of 18 in the United States is illegal. So if a minor does create a photo, they've created technically child pornography. So having them understand that under the age of 18, it's illegal. They're not supposed to do it. But again, we do know that it's going to happen. The big thing is creating that open dialogue so that if it does, the minor can come to you, and hopefully then you can work on contacting law enforcement, contacting an internet service provider, and there's a process for which you can help get those images taken down.
Thank you. We got a big yes there in the audience. So thank you for that. What are some red flags to look out for with online predators?
Yeah. So the first thing with this idea of online predator, right? I wanted that to be my cue to mention to you stranger danger. So stranger danger, a lot of research shows that's not who we should be afraid of. Yes, you should obviously talk to your kids about strangers. And but statistically speaking, you should be more afraid of the people that are in your community, the people you know, your friends, your family, unfortunately, your colleagues, your next door neighbor, you know, your school teachers, your swim coach, right? So the first thing you should let kids know is that this isn't a stranger danger problem. It's anybody problem. It could be anybody. So when we talk about online predators and some of the flags, red flags that you could talk to your minors about, some things are, you know, saying things like, this is a secret, that no one else will understand our relationship, that, you know, or the I show you, you show me is one way. Some offenders will just come out and pay for images to be sent from the minor. Another one is changing platforms. That's a big one. So they might initially meet on a, you know, gaming platform where it allows chatting, but it doesn't allow you to send photos. And so then the offender will say, well, why don't we jump onto WhatsApp? Or why don't we move on to this other platform? And so the moving of the platforms is one, because the offender is trying to gain access to, again, videos or images, but it also could be because they might think parents are monitoring certain platforms. And so by jumping the conversation around, it's less likely that a parent will be aware that that conversation is occurring then. And so that's something else to talk to the minor about, that you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to continue to switch platforms like that.
Thank you. And are all child sex offenders pedophiles?
Yeah. So again, this really started my entire research career and everything that I was interested in from an undergrad standpoint. And so when we talk about pedophilia, pedophilia is a clinical diagnosis. That means a psychiatrist is the one who will, you know, give that label. And it is one where you have to meet certain diagnostic criteria according to the DSM. So the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. That's a lot. So pedophilia falls under the paraphilias. So those are, you know, kind of sexual interests, things like fetishes, fantasies, you know, foot fetishes, things like that. Now, pedophilia then is traditionally under the age of 11. So prepubescent are the kind of the age or the group that these individuals are attracted to, and that is their primary sexual attraction. So just because somebody downloads images off the internet, or just because somebody is asking for images from a minor, does not make them a pedophile. So that is a criminal offense, does not mean that you are a pedophile. Somebody who sexually offends against a minor doesn't make them a pedophile. So it's really important to think about it as a clinic diagnosis where less than 1% of the world is diagnosed with it, versus a behavior that is exacerbated because it's easy, also because you can make billions of dollars in this. You know, people may not actually be interested in obtaining child sexual exploitation material for themselves, but they want it so they can sell it to others. So that's another issue. We also see too, unfortunately, that a lot of the material that is created is what we call self-created. So those sexting photos, where a minor might actually be willing to give the photo because they're getting paid. And so I've seen cases where a 15-year-old wanted to buy a car, and so they started taking photos and selling them online. And again, so it's absolutely horrible,
Wow.
still legal, yeah. So hopefully that kind of clarifies the difference between the crime or the criminal offense and what a pedophile is.
I'm just still trying to. I think
I know,
some of
the
the ladies are
case-
just going, wow.
Yeah, the
So what-
cases we see are, they're pretty crazy.
Okay. I can't believe how fast the time is going. I have like pages of questions, but I want to get to the questions here on the chat for the ladies that did put their
Oh,
questions
good.
here. So
Gotta
let's
look at the
go
chat too.
back.
Okay.
The first one was Joanne. I want to know more about what settings to use for students under 18 to help keep them safer.
Oh, will you say that again?
I want to know more about what settings to use for students under 18 to help keep them safer.
Oh, okay. So that's a good question. Because technology changes so much, it is going to be hard for parents, right, for you to stay up to date on what apps are available. Some apps too are, for instance, the Vault app is an app that looks like a calculator on the phone, but it actually is kind of secret application that you have to put a password in, and then you could save photos to it, or save messages, or save screenshots. So you may not, you might look at the kid's phone and say, oh, there's nothing on here. And then you don't realize that that's a fake calculator app. So what to do? There are parental settings. So becoming familiar with, Instagram, whatever application is really important. And the website that I would recommend for this, there are two of them. One of them is called cyberbullying.org. And I can put that into the chat as well for you guys. It is a center down the Cyberbullying Research Center down in Florida. And they have tons of materials for teachers, for parents. They also have a social media apps or application kind of list where you can scroll through and see the different apps, and it'll tell you how kids are using it and the dangers and things that you should be concerned about. It'll also tell you different parental settings and give you recommendations. So that's one website that I would take a look at. And then the other one is called NetSmarts, and that's smarts with a Z. And that is done by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That one's nice because it's based on age range. So, depending on how, if you have a teen, versus a youth, preteen, teen, it'll give you an idea of, again, different applications, different parental settings. They also have something called a technology contract, where they recommend, again, that you sit down with your minor and you talk about the ways in which technology should be used and the ways in which it should not be used, and create a contract where it says, like, if you violate this, then the technology is taken away from you. And that way the minor understands that you will also be monitoring what they're doing. There are, again, different applications that you can install where it allows you to see who they're chatting with or what the chats are. But the biggest thing is, your child. So setting up a strong communication line is key, because when they stop communicating is when there's a problem. If they stop talking to you about things, if they are using their phone in the other room and they used to use it right next to you on the couch, if they're texting secretly, those are the red flags. So again, behavioral changes, just, like anything else, right? When the behavior of your minor changes, there might be a problem with that technology. And just be aware, though, that if you are too helicopter, right? If you were too strict, all they're going to do is use their friend's phone. And so that's what we see, right? We see that they just use their friend's phone to chat with that person online that they're not supposed to be chatting with, or to have those secret relationships, or to send photos. So keep that in mind, that you really want to create an environment where of trust and communication, and then that way they know they can come to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Linda asked, what academic background would you recommend for students interested in your industry?
Oh, yeah. So we just created a couple years ago, at Purdue, there's a digital criminology major, and it is a joint, I know, right? It's kind of a joint relationship between law and society, and then our cybersecurity program. So students can get a nice heavy dose in criminological theory, in the criminal justice system, and then also take some technical courses so that they understand the technical side of the crime as well. That's one major that I would recommend at Purdue. And it's a pretty unique one. That's not one that you're going to find at other universities. You might find, that computer science, and they might have 2 classes that you could take in cybersecurity or something. So this is a really nice program that we developed where we blended basically two majors into one, so that students didn't have to double major. The other one, if you're more interested in the tech side, you could major in cybersecurity, which is my department in CIT. And within that major, we have digital forensic courses. So if you're interested, again, in that kind of digital evidence side, you can also, within that, we have open credit hours so that you can minor. So a lot of our students minor in general forensics, they minor in psychology, they minor in communications. And so that would be another really nice way of kind of starting to get into this field. And of course, the good old double major in psych and law, kind of the route that I took. You can minor in cybersecurity. That might be an option too.
Okay, thank you. I think someone looks like they put the chat here. Those links that you were talking about.
Oh, perfect.
Savannah asked, do you think someone starting at 30 years old is too late to into what you're doing?
I mean, you know what I'm going to say. I would say
Of course
never.
not. Of course,
Absolutely
of
not.
course. Can you comment on the criminal? Okay. Anne Marie asked, can you comment on the criminal detection and law enforcement is prepared with the pace AI is evolving where someone can easily create deep fakes, AI generated messages that sound like a person, etc., related to cyberbullying and other acts? You're going to have to break that down for us.
Oh yeah. So I saw a question earlier too that was kind of like, what is going to be the future of cybercrime?
Yeah,
And that is exactly what I would prevention. And I was going to say AI. I mean, there is so much data. Just, I mean, think about how many pictures are on your phone and how many terabytes of information. And I know, for instance, I have a personal computer, I have a work computer, I've got a cell phone. I also have an iPad. I mean, when you start talking about from a law enforcement perspective, all of the data we have to analyze, it's a lot. And so I think AI is going to be really important from a preventative standpoint, kind of like what I was showing you where we're analyzing sex offender chats. You know, we're using machine learning to do that. And it's based on research, but we're trying to provide a technical application or a solution because again, we have to sift through so much information. Now, as far as being able to handle these deep fakes, you're absolutely right. It's hard. They are working.
What that is, Dr. Payne.
Yeah. So a deep fake is a picture that looks, you know, there's some famous one with President Obama, but it looks like President Obama shaking hands with Putin. And the images get shared around and you think it's real. I mean, it looks so good, but it turns out to be fake. And so that it's related to kind of fake news, misinformation. It's, and again, it's because it's so easy to spread that. We have the same problem with child sexual exploitation material or child pornography, in that you can actually create fake images of CP. They look real. It looks like a real victim, but there's no real victim. And so, from a law enforcement standpoint, you're trying to figure out, is this a real person or not? Do we need to find out who this individual is, this minor? And again, yeah, you're right. It's going to be hard. I think that machine learning is going to come into play. Obviously, technical advances. There are some little things like if you've ever mirrored your images. I don't know if you know, you can do that, but you can take a photo and then you can flip it and make a mirror of it. So we're even seeing that from a biometric standpoint. Like, are we looking at somebody's right hand or left hand? Because the image could be mirrored and you can't tell. Now, for us, we don't care. We're just looking for a knuckle, so it doesn't matter. But in some instances, it might really matter whether that's a right or left hand. And sometimes in the photo, you can tell it's been mirrored because words will appear to be backwards and things like that. It's a little setting on your phone, so you can kind of play around with it after the talk. But yeah, you're right. I don't even know where to tell you to begin. It's going to be a problem. It's a problem now that we're already facing. So. Too much data.
Yeah, there's a lot of data. Okay, someone called me and said, asked this question. Some kids put themselves in risky positions for fun, or they're bored and wanting to get attention. This is what they do. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, hopefully this will be related to kind of the question you're asking. The first thing that comes up to me is something called sad phishing. And that might be a term you've never heard before. Sad phishing is when usually a minor, but adults can do it too, is when you post something on social media like, I'm just ugly. And then you're looking for people to give you feedback and reassurance that you're not. It's the sad, you're fishing for compliments. It's that sad kind of, so social media ends up being the need that this person, the feedback that they get, right? And this is problematic. That's why we see currently a lot of mental health issues with adolescents because of the reliance on social media and because of, inspiration and some of these different things and this unrealistic standard that we have to hold ourselves up to. And the fact that we take 40 selfies before we post one. And how many of us are willing to post a selfie without a filter? So I think the minors are, kind of growing up with this. So, I mean, we didn't have to deal with things like this, but they're growing up with this, and it's a standard that nobody can uphold, right? But one of those things is to look out for sad phishing. It might be a hint that somebody is, depressed or really, struggling within the household. Maybe they're lacking a support system. Maybe they're lacking a support system within school. And so they end up going online and posting these types of comments, and because they're looking for attention. That it does tend to be an attention-seeking behavior. But that's the kind of what I thought.
That is the reality of today, isn't it? So
Yeah.
this is fascinating. The Social Dilemma on Netflix, I believe, is kind of like that. That's what's
Mhm.
said. What are the consequences of people that do cybercrime?
Well, it depends, right? It depends on kind of what the crime is. So for an individual that is sending or sending child sexual exploitation material, we're talking about an adult. They could get anything from a minimum of 5 years, maximum in life. It just depends on what the crime is going to be. For a minor, a lot of this depends on what the school policy is. So that cyberbullying.org website I mentioned, please check it out, because they also have they have all of the state laws related to sexting and related to cyberbullying. So you'll know kind of how Indiana or wherever you are in the US right now, how your state handles it. So is it seen as has to be on campus, so the school only handles on campus bullying, or will the school step in if bullying is occurring between any students, regardless of whether or not the student is at home with their parents? And then what are the disciplinary actions related to that? So is this something that law enforcement gets contacted, or is it seen to be a school problem? And so again, these are really kind of interesting kind of legal areas, because as a minor, we don't want to charge a 14-year-old as a child porn distributor, right? That's not what we want. We don't want to give them a sex offender label. Now we're putting them on the sex offender registry, which was a problem a few years ago before the law started catching up related to sexting. So we want to make sure that you kind of understand how your state would handle a situation like that.
Thank you. Now, Joyce did say that children aren't the only ones impacted.
Yeah.
Would you like to comment on that?
Related to just
in
pornography
general,
in general?
cybercrime, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, as I mentioned, adults can non-consensual pornography or revenge porn is the kind of the mainstream term that's used for that. We could be the victim of that. We could be the victim of phishing scams or malware or any sort of crime. Absolutely.
You mentioned that she has an 80-year-old friend who has been scammed by a male adult because of this. She's been homeless. Yeah.
Yeah, so we call those. I'm guessing that this is the case, but we call those love scams a lot of times. And so we see that these individuals tend to be lonely. They're looking to talk to somebody, and they might end up thinking that they've created a friend or they're in a relationship, and they start sending money. A lot of these are related to Nigerian scams, unfortunately, is where we see the majority of the love scams kind of coming from. But that's a great, I'm so glad you said that. That's a great point to bring up, is that, depending on, kind of our age, we might be at greater risk for certain types of crime. And so when we start talking about the elderly, we start thinking about kind of love scams or those fraud scams like theft. A great example, my uncle got a phone call. The person claimed to be the lawyer of his nephew, and his nephew had been arrested in Illinois for, I don't know, a DUI, something. And what he was needing a wire transfer for a bond and to pay his retainer fee. And what got my uncle thinking it was real was because he used the nephew's nickname that only the family uses. Nobody else really uses that nickname, but clearly it was somebody who had done their research on social media. And somebody had commented in a photo love you, Charlie, or whatever it is, right? And maybe Charlie's not even their first or middle name, but they realized that's what they call them. So my uncle at first thought it was real because there was these little pieces of information that only he would know. But again, my uncle's not on social media, not on Instagram, not on Facebook, so doesn't realize how easy it is to pick up on those little hints and cues. And so offenders are doing that, right? So if your social media is public, you should make it private. You should lock it down and don't accept friend requests from random people. Don't trust. I just don't trust. I guess is right. That's probably an unfortunate thing to say. But yeah, those love scams are absolutely horrible, and a lot of people are impacted by them.
We do have only a few minutes left. I'll just end with two questions.
Really?
Yes, this flew by.
Yeah,
So
it did.
Just a few questions, and then we'll just do a lightning round, because this I think the audience really likes to do this, do this as well. And then get your glasses, lady, for the end of the session picture. So what is the most difficult part of your job, and any last words that you'd like to share with us tonight?
Oh, the most difficult part of my job. Wow. Honestly, for me, this is probably not what you're expecting me to say. It's probably the assumptions that people make about me. Oh yeah, well, I mean, think about it, right? So, how are you able to handle this? It must be so hard for you. Or is that why you don't have kids? Is that why? So I get a lot of those kinds of questions. And the problem though, is that if I respond with, well, it's not difficult for me, I love my job, that sounds really horrible because I deal with horrible content, right? But then if I also say, well, it is really hard and I struggle every day, like that's also not true. And then it feels like the wrong answer. That's like my least favorite question is, how do you handle this? Because I think that I am lucky that I can. And for whatever reason, my brain processes it in a way where it's zeros and ones, and it's data, and I find it as a puzzle piece, and I want to investigate it because I can. And so, and that's the best way to describe it.
You do important work. We are very
Thank you.
appreciative of everything that you do, the research that you've come up. I mean, obviously this chat exploded and I couldn't get to every question, but thank you. Thank you, Dr. K. And last words that you'd like to share with us tonight?
So last words is, again, communication is key with minors. Please just create that open dialogue and know that, your friends might allow their 14-year-old to have a phone, but maybe your 14-year-old's not ready yet. And that's okay. I get that question a lot. What age is appropriate? I don't know. I mean, I was a very different kid than, my friends, and our maturity levels were different. So just kind of remember that you are the person that knows your kid the best. And you got to trust that and keep that communication line open. Absolutely. And please reach out to me if you ever have questions. And I love to share resources. So I'm happy to provide links and get you the information you need.
Thank you. If you could, we're going to take a group picture. So if you could just make that great.
Yep.
Okay, round robin, everyone. Lightning questions. There's only 12. If you'd like to participate, you're welcome to put your answer in the chat. But the questions are for Dr. Kate. But please, if you'd like to help her out for some of these, you're welcome. We will run probably about 2 minutes over to get this done, but I think it's always fun. Okay, number one. Would you rather travel to the past or to the future?
Oh, definitely the past.
Okay. If your pet could talk, what would they say about you?
That I love possum more than the other two.
Most influential psychologist.
Oh, wow. I would have to say Freud. I mean, that was really kind of the start.
I saw that. Okay. Favorite word in another language?
Oh, salud.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Cheers.
Say something cool.
Oh, that's not gonna. I can't even think of what that would be.
That's fine, ladies. If you want to help. Okay. Who inspires you?
Oh, my mother.
Okay. What's the most boring thing ever?
My husband's job in construction.
Oh.
Don't tell him I said that. Don't tell him I said that. I know.
Okay. Name a Harry Potter character.
I've never seen Harry Potter. I don't know any of it. So is Harry Potter one?
Yeah. Okay, we've got some shocked faces here. Yes, he is one.
Never seen, never read it. I know.
Name something you can't live without.
Oh, definitely my dogs, my kids. Okay. Yeah. And my husband. Maybe I should put it in order of husband first. He's really supportive of my work. And so I should probably, he would definitely, yeah.
I could edit this video and put them first. If you could sit down with your 13-year-old self, what would you tell that person?
That it's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it.
Oh, awesome. Boilermaker Special or Purdue Pete?
Oh, Pete.
Okay. Fill in the blank. Purdue is?
Where I started my entire journey. Awesome. And I wouldn't have changed it.
Love it. Love it. Thank you.